So it's going to be a little weird because in Sulphur Springs, the only way that you guys can see what I'm doing on the computer is for me to switch. I don't know if you can switch your own view to the computer. Like, do you have an area in the room where you see a computer screen? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have an area where you see on your projector screen a vision of a computer, and right now you're seeing like the mouse move? Can you see the mouse move on things? Can you see that? Why is the mouse not moving?
No, we can't.
So you can't see me opening a window anywhere like I'm doing right now?
No.
Do you have a remote that looks like this?
Yeah.
With that remote, there are some blue buttons in the center. One that says auto, one that says camera. Do you see those? On one of them, it says camera, and I believe you can push camera, then the number 2 on the number pad beneath, and it may switch to a computer view, though I don't know if it switches to the one you have in the room, or if it switches to the one that I have. Oh, it switches our view of you. Try now to hit the same button, camera button, but change it to camera number 3. There are a lot of cameras in your room. Okay, we'll try this again. Try camera and then 4.
I guess on camera 4. There's no computer detector.
Oh, okay. Well, try hitting camera 1 again. So now you see the view that we see. Okay, this is interesting. So you're seeing like an infinite loop of that view. Hit camera 4 again. Now hit camera 3 again. We see a blue screen. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Hey, John, how do I get them to see the computer in my room? That's what I'm having trouble with.
Computer.
Well, I got it to where I can see the computer in here.
Computer 2.
Can you see my computer?
I gotta see what.
Yeah.
They're seeing the.
Okay, well, yeah, I asked them to push a whole bunch of buttons, so now they see different stuff. Have you got it to where all you see is the computer screen?
What does your computer screen show?
There shows a camera pointing at the projector screen that has the computer on it.
Okay, so what?
So you need to push, I think, camera 1 again one more time. Push camera 1.
No, they shouldn't really have to adjust theirs.
Your computer screen, but on a projector, it shows blue. Like we have 2 different screens in here. One shows us on computer screen and one shows.
Do you see the words Google on the screen right now?
Yeah.
Do you see a mouse moving?
Yeah.
And that's all you see is the screen? You don't see a weird angle of something pointed at the screen?
No.
Awesome. So you're seeing what you're supposed to see.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Yeah.
So, camera 2 for computer.
Well, that was weird because I pushed camera 2 one time, and it showed us the computer, but not them. So I guess I have to push it again until it shows it. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Is that good?
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
John, yours is not facing out. I can't tell who you are. Awesome. So John, okay, thank you.
All right.
Got to make sure that that's we don't get no stranger danger
That's right.
here at PJC.
That's right.
All right, so on my laptop here, this is going to be a little weird because I have a laptop that is plugged up, and it's the only way that I can record the lesson. so it's pointed at me, it's recording. But I'm also going to be shadowing everything I do on the computer that you see, and I'll probably do the shadowing more. I'm curious at Sulphur Springs, you can tell that the web page is on Google, but can you actually read the word Google, or do you just kind of know that that's what it is?
Well, you can read it.
Like you can straight up read Google.
Yeah.
Now, down here, can you tell that that says Paris Junior College?
It's a little blurry, but we can still read it.
You can still read it. You must be seeing exactly what we see then, because the last semester we did this, they told us, yeah, if you want them to be able to see anything, you have to blow it up to like 50 font or something. And they could say, they were like, we can tell that says Google, but not that it really says Google. And I was like, oh, that's disappointing. So I'm glad to hear this. That means that this shouldn't take as long as I had feared that it might. First of all, did y'all take the info sheets with you last time and fill them out, those in Greenville?
Yes.
Okay, so y'all can kind of pass those to the end of the table here, so I've got them. I believe in Sulphur Springs that I emailed Linda and asked her to give you the info sheets today. Did she bring those down to the classroom? It's like a piece of paper that looks like a grid with blank boxes and little words that say what you should write in the boxes.
Three days later.
No.
Okay. You might after class just go and ask for it afterwards, because you can bring it to class next time and then email it. Or not email it, but have her send it. It doesn't matter when I get it, really, just that I get it. I sent that email to her right after class on Tuesday, so it might have just been that since it wasn't right before class, it was kind of like she'd probably received 50 emails since then. So you might just go down after class and remind the people at the front that, and it might be Linda, it might be Iris, that I sent something on Wednesday that y'all would have copies of, or on Tuesday, and that just find the email from Mr. Nichols and print that out, give it to you, so y'all can take it as kind of a homework deal.
All right.
Okay.
Are you talking about the contract?
No, the contract is the thing that was at the end of the syllabus. This info sheet looks like it's got like a 3x4 square grid on the paper.
That was it in here? Okay.
Oh, I bet I could just real quick, assuming I don't screw anything up. I can kind of show you what it looks like by showing you a physical copy of the paper, and somebody's that's filled out, they can't read this. It looks kind of like this. Y'all don't have anything like that?
No.
Okay. So I emailed it to her, so just go after class and say that I had emailed it to them on Tuesday. They'll find it, they'll print it out for you, and then you can fill it out on the weekend and bring it back.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so back to the computer. Now, I didn't make there's no like complicated lesson or anything. I'm just going to show you the first essay that's assigned so you can get started on working on that. And also how to do discussion posts, because that's what's due this weekend is the quiz over the syllabus and discussion posts, the first ones. So I wanted to make sure that you knew what to do with that and you weren't kind of left in the dark trying to figure things out. Also, there was no literature read for this week, so we don't really have anything to discuss yet. But next week we'll be talking about Beowulf.
But we should be reading Beowulf.
Over the weekend, yes.
So we don't have. So you want us to read 36 to 107, right? By
Yes.
Monday? And
By
then post,
yes,
and then post.
yeah. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that last time.
It's okay. Just double check.
Okay. Let me get my camera pointed more at me so the recording shows better. You can't see that yet, so you don't have to worry about it. Let me see. I'm going to pull on both computers up the exact same thing so that I can go faster. So let me get to our class. Actually, in fact, it's probably better if everybody's had probably Blackboard in some fashion at this point, right?
Yeah.
So parisjc.blackboard.com Wow, somebody put their entire class error screen as a favorite. Okay, so parisjc.blackboard.com. I'm going to log into my fake student name, Magnus Baraka. Y'all's a student ID, 8-digit birth date. And from there, we'll go to our class, which is Britlit, English 2322. This is interesting. I don't even know how to deal with this, that y'all are seeing what we're seeing. That's the strangest thing. Hey, is y'all's also a really ugly shade of yellow?
No. Turn the camera down when you're done. I thought you had to push a button. Yeah, we do.
Oh, wait, are you still seeing the computer?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
And then,
Thank you.
but your screen is not some weird, ugly shade of urine color yellow?
No.
I wonder why ours is. Ours has this awful, awful tint to it.
Looks like it's.
It looks like you're looking through pee. That's what it looks like. Like somebody peed on the lens. I'm curious if I could just adjust the color real quick.
2,000 years later.
I apologize. I still get so annoyed with this. It's just, look at it. I mean, it's terrible. So here we go to our class, Britlit Fall, and the calendar's over here. You might notice an issue with this on your computer as well, where it won't show the sidebar that you need to get to other stuff. If that's the case, I think you can click here. No, I found a way one time to make that happen, because it's usually a blue bar on the left.
What are you trying to do?
I believe you actually have to make it smaller, and that's the only way to make it. I'm trying to show the sidebar. There it is. So you've got to be at a certain size in order for the sidebar to come up. Y'all can't even see it. Like, see where my cursor is? It's going off the edge of the screen. Now, there's a big blue bar. You see that gray thing right there?
Yeah.
That's the tab saying, hey, open this up. And so we will. And then we'll go straight over here to, I talked about reading assistance. Did I actually show you that at all?
No.
I do want to show you that. So this right here links directly to the Seamus Haney translation of Beowulf. And this links to the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Remember I said that the Beowulf translation of the book is the best one there is?
Yes.
But the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, in the book, it's the best we have. But this online version can work if you have to make it. And then this is where you'll link for the interlinear translations of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales as well, where it's got the English above each, or it's got the original above each line and the plain English below. That's really helpful for Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And then I've got the links for Shakespeare stuff since it's free as well. But the textbook has the best versions of all the texts. Then when we click back over here, we can get to discussion posts, quizzes, and assignments. Now what I'm going to do first is talk about the essay, because I feel it helps us talk about the discussion posts. So of all the things here, it's going to be assignments. It says there is no content to display because apparently I'm a moron. Give me a second. I thought I checked all the dates. It's not going to take but probably 3 seconds. 2 seconds. No, 5 seconds. To go over to the correct. I wonder what the day is that it has been set for. It says it'll be available. Why? That won't help us. It was set for 11:59 p.m. Oh, that was because there were all those issues with dates changing improperly. So it's got to be available at 1 p.m. like I want. Bingo. Oh, the ITV class. Oh, but that's not the ITV's fault. That's me. Refresh. Okay, there it is. So, get back over here in both windows. Assignments. Census analysis 1 and 2. Why does it look so weird? Okay. And it is a Word format file. I think I'll open up a PDF. I think I'll put a PDF on there as well so that we can see a PDF, because I know that'll open on phones in addition to on your computer. I'll make this real big. What? Enable it. Who has this set to preview mode? It's so stupid. Easiest way to make it bigger. What's 100%? That's 100%. What about 107?
You can do that at the bottom too. Yeah.
Oh, I can? I didn't know that.
Little bar at the bottom.
Never used it. This is why I don't have a lot scheduled today. Okay, so there are two different essays, synthesis analysis 1 and 2. One is due on week 3, day 1, and one's due on week 5, day 1. So they're really due kind of 2 weeks after each other. The critical evaluation is due week 7, day 2, I think. But that's a new type of essay, and we'll have that assigned just after this last one's due, I think on week 5, day 2. What you do with this assignment is, first of all, you pick one of the readings, one of the ones that's in green. I wish I could show you that on here. I mean, I can try, but you're not going to be able to tell what green is if everything looks yellow. So you have a choice between, I mean, you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
There's Beowulf, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and most people, just because that's all they've read so far, end up choosing one or the other for the synthesis analysis essay number 1. But you're welcome to choose any green reading from the whole course. It includes Chaucer's Canterbury Tales with the exception of the general prologue. You can't tell, but that's not green, it's blue. You can choose Wife of Baths, Pardoner's Prologue, Nun's Priest, Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, King Lear, any of Shakespeare's sonnets, John Donne, Ben Jonson, and it's not all the sonnets, it's just a select few. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, but on the blue, is that like mandatory just like the green? I wasn't really listening on that part.
The green readings and the blue readings are both mandatory. It's just that with the blue readings,
got it.
you're not allowed to write about them for discussion posts or essays.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
But those two will be on the quiz.
Yes, but they will be on the quiz, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Alright, thanks.
No problem. And then you can also go Paradise Lost, Gulliver's Travels. Please don't mention the movie with Jack Black. I don't want to hear it. It was so bad. So I don't even want to be reminded. And then Alexander Pope's essay on criticism or Thomas Gray's Elegy in the Country Churchyard. You can choose any of those. And some of them are much shorter than what we're reading for Beowulf, so you may just want to jump ahead, get the essay done, then get back and start reading. I mean, I don't know your style of work. You may want to get stuff done really quick. All of those are options for synthesis analysis essay 1 and 2. You cannot write both of them over the same piece of literature. Synthesis analysis 1 and 2 must be over different pieces of literature. And the critical evaluation you do later, which is a more focused assignment and more objective, logical, and it's also more wrapped up with minutia. So you're taking a very close look at a small piece of something, some literary element. You may want to choose what you do for synthesis analysis based on that, or vice versa. So that the more complicated works of literature may be better for you to do for critical evaluation later. You may not want to just do whatever you like the most as a synthesis analysis. You may want to strategically choose what you pick. So the way you do this is I'm going to skip the first 2 lines because they're just justification for the title. Basically, you take information from the story, synthesize it with the knowledge and experiences of your own life, as well as analyze reasons why your opinion on the work of literature have been shaped by your life experiences. I understand that sounds a bit stilted and over-constructed, so the next few lines are the ones I think are really helpful. Basically, think of these questions. What did literary reading mean to you? How did it make you feel? How did your experiences shape the way you read the story? Basically, you just need to write what from the story you most responded to and what in your life made you respond that way. Try to provide compelling thoughts about the themes and subject matter as well that show true insight. I'm more interested not just in knowing what you think about the stories and the poems. I want to know why you think what you think. If, for example, you hated Beowulf, you hate the character of Beowulf, you thought he was a big dumb jock. I want to know why you think that. What's wrong with being a big dumb jock? What's wrong with being the Hulk? I need a reason, And if you say, well, I was always in school. I was good at, math, science. This is me. I was good at math, science. Really liked school. Really liked reading. And so I didn't really tie up a lot of my self-worth and identity in being physically capable. And so I think that either I've always found those who are physically capable, super athletic, don't really care about intellectual things, to be not less than, but just people that I don't find my self-worth in it. So I'm less interested in those ideals and people spouting those ideals as something valuable. So when I look at Beowulf, and he's a very physical character who's looking at trying to overpower through brute strength his foes, I find that to be less interesting because of my background as somebody who's always found value in the intellectual. And so I might put that in my paper. And it's an example of something you might do. Or you might really like Beowulf, you say, because, well, I grew up in the church, and so I'm very Christian. I wrapped up in Christian ideals, and Beowulf's constantly thanking God for what he does, and I appreciated that. And he says it all came from God, not from himself, and that's what I enjoy. So, it could go either way. There's all kinds of reasons you might think what you think, might like or dislike something. I just want you to be clear about those, because my goal here is that you won't just go through life having opinions and not knowing where they come from, that you'll be able to identify your personal biases and not let them be a hindrance to your ability to be a decent human being. Questions so far? Criticisms of the assignment? Why do we have to write essays? That kind of thing? No. And the format, it'll just look like the sample paper. I could give you more detail than that, but might as well just look at the sample paper below. The length is 600 to 800 words, just not that much. It's like maybe 2 pages double spaced, maybe 2.5. I tend to notice that the ones that go a little longer than 2 pages are the best. No need for a works cited page because I assume you're using the textbook. The only time I would maybe need one is if you weren't using the textbook and I wanted to know where you read this, where online that you were reading it. Grading. So I want you to present ample detail from the story you've chosen, the poem. Enough that I can tell that you read it, so it's not just that I'm getting detail from Spark Notes, not the text itself. Explain how you responded to the story, so I need your opinions. And then analyze through looking at how the story is written as well as your own experiences, why you responded in that way. That's the thing most people don't do. So I don't want you to spend time summarizing the plot or giving a line-by-line analysis of what's happening. I've read Beowulf quite a few times, and so I don't need to be retold what it's about, which a lot of people want to do for the entire essay. Be sure to include your personal opinions about the meaning of the work. That's what people often forget. And the number one thing people forget is not to explain to me why they think what they think. But to me, that's the most important thing. Generally speaking, papers will top out at an 85 if they don't do that. And a 75 if they don't give opinion at all. If it's just nothing but plot summary, then that's like 60 or 50 to me.
Personal insight on the story.
Yeah, more of a personal insight, less of you telling me
About the story.
literally how the symbolism comes into play, or what this must mean based on what the author's trying to say. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm looking for more on the critical evaluation, is using the text to figure out what it means based on what the author wanted it to mean. I want to know what this means to you, why it's important to you, even what you hated about it, maybe. Yeah, it's gonna be like this on the first two. Yeah.
And no citations.
No need for citations.
Kind of like in-text citations, though.
Yeah, I'll need page numbers, references, line numbers if it's a poem, and it provides them. Other questions? Not so far? I normally wouldn't, but I have time. So I'm going to read the sample paper and talk about what it does well, so that when you're writing your own paper, you're kind of concentrating on some similar stuff. Yes?
No, I'm just reading it like that so I don't have to be putting it every time.
Did anyone in this room understand what she just said? Could you say what you said again?
I said I just clicked it so I didn't have to click it again every time I need to talk.
Oh.
Oh, okay, so you're just leaving it on and you made a noise on accident, and so that's all that happened? Okay. I think I understand. Because you said you left the button on, so what I heard when I thought somebody was talking was just like a noise in the room.
That was her turning. And she's gonna leave.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was just the sound of you turning on the button.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we got it. It's very hard for me to understand what's going on when I can't see faces. Isn't ITV great? It's one of the wonders of the world, really. It is. Here we go. So, and I realized just now I've been doing nothing on my personal computer. Let's open it up, I guess. Why did it open automatically? Oh, okay. So stupid. And open, bingo. Scroll down to the sample paper. Here, I'll just start reading. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's story, The Birthmark, a man marries a woman with a small red birthmark on her face. Georgiana had always liked it until her husband Aylmer grew to hate it. Since he was a scientist, he became obsessed with thinking of ways he could remove the blemish. He became obsessed with thinking of ways he could remove it so she could finally be perfect. But I think he misses the point of perfection. So, did anybody read that story in 1302? The Birthmark? I know in my class you did. He basically sums it up really well. There was a guy who married a woman. She had a red birthmark on her face in the shape of a hand. Everybody always told her it was kind of her little charm. But he says, you know what? You're super attractive, and you would be like perfect if you just didn't have that one little birthmark on your face. He said, I could try to get rid of it for you. I'm a scientist. I could figure it out. She's like, everybody kind of told me it's like my thing. And he's like, yeah, but you would be perfect if we just got rid of it. And she's like, oh, okay. Over the course of the story, she starts feeling worse and worse about who she is. And he eventually does figure out how to get rid of it, but it kills her. She dies once the birthmark goes away. So, with that story in mind, he found some different things throughout that caught his interest. It's not just going through the plot that he does. First thing he says is, Aylmer said that truth often finds its way to the mind, close muffled in robes of sleep, and he provides a page number there, to prove his point that he had a right to hate the birthmark. He said, but it wasn't a dream that made Aylmer hate the birthmark, it was his own wicked heart. Instead of showing the truth, I think dreams are fiction because people would react in a different way in real-life situations. Of all the dreams I have had, I cannot think of one that made me figure out the truth about something. Some dreams are too good to be realistic, some are unbelievable, and some are vivid and scary at times, but I never found any truth I could use in my everyday life. So, I mean, it's not one of the more compelling things in that story, I don't think, when I've read it. The idea that... I mean, it's almost like he's talking about the drinking reveals the truth theory. You ever heard of somebody, like, they get drunk and, like, they're suddenly, like, spilling their life story in, like, a movie or something? Like, it's almost like that same idea is that when your mind is in the land of freedom, dreams, you do the things you would normally do that you wouldn't really do in real life. And he said, no, that's not true. I've never done any of this stuff. Like, I've never wandered around a high school naked like I feared in my dreams. It's not something that taught me anything that I could use on a daily basis. He said, so whatever. And I didn't find that a super compelling idea, but it was original at least. So I'd never heard it before, so I kind of went, oh, okay, that's neat. Nobody's ever addressed that aspect of the story.
So is this a previous essay or somebody?
Yes, this is something that somebody really wrote. I used to write my own sample essays, but then I realized that there's just something about me, and I think any teacher, we just don't write like naturally like a student would. Because we see essays all the time, hundreds of them. And so that sort of affects the way in which we approach a paper that might be different than a normal human being might.
Drives me crazy. He starts sentences with but.
Yes. It actually doesn't drive me crazy. I'm less of a stickler on those sorts of things, probably because I've seen so many essays.
Well, like misfolded with like nitpicks.
Really?
So now I'm like, take it right.
Can I see your book? The book right there?
Oh, this one?
Yeah. I might be wrong, but I'm
You
curious.
think there's going to be a sentence that starts with that?
Let's see how long it takes me to find one.
It happens sometimes.
Oh, it's gonna have to be somebody talking, probably. Oh, it's a first person.
It goes back and forth.
Oh, it does?
Point of view, yeah. So if you're at the part where
I don't want to
she's
lose your
captured-
place. There's
Oh,
so
I have
much
the book.
dialogue. My gosh. No, I guess she took Mrs. Folden's class. Oh, there we go. But some pieces of myself, some feelings, it's just not like that anymore. So it didn't take me long to find one. It
Yeah.
happens way more often than you think. Like, it's in lots and lots of books. Now, granted, this is contemporary genre fiction. So, I mean, it's not like we're reading Shakespeare or anything. But it happens, like, more often than you would think that it should, based on all the rules that teachers have told us for years.
It's like your dialogue right there. Now you're like, but.
However, I that was a sentence that had a comma in the middle. Ever since you mentioned but, I've been very conscious of when I'm
What
saying
I
it
say.
and how if I'm starting a sentence with it. But most sentences are contained too of independent clauses. Any that has a but in it is an independent clause, comma, and then or it's not supposed to have a comma. It's supposed to just be but. But it's fun to talk about. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off. I'm getting excited talking about grammar and syntax. Huh?
I said we are in a literary class.
I guess I'm allowed to, huh? But yeah, so yeah, he does start sentences with but. Now, whether he's doing it for creative purposes, I highly doubt. So he probably shouldn't be. But I don't grade too badly on those sorts of things because I understand that most people who are writing essays for a class, you're not going to go on to become professional writers. At least that's not. At least at this community college, most people are going to trying to go on to become nurses, criminal justice majors. Though I notice that doesn't happen very often in this particular class. Most people in this room aren't nurse majors. What is it?
Oh, I was thinking criminal justice.
Oh, what are your majors? I'm curious because I've got on a sheet. Do y'all know yet?
Architecture.
Architecture, psychology,
Architectural engineering.
architectural engineering. Don't know yet. Still working it out.
Professional
Pilot.
So then undecided maybe engineering.
Undecided, maybe engineering. I usually don't get a whole lot of nurses, criminal justice majors in this class. I don't know why.
Yeah,
When
I
it-
kind of want to do the nurse too, but
Oh.
I'm on it, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it or not. That's why I'm not sure. I might move to become the teacher instead.
Oh, okay. I can only speak to being a teacher, but it's a lot less gross. We don't make, I don't know, I think we actually make, or at least I do, around the same money, I think, as a nurse. Not quite as much, but
I feel like it's a
I don't have to do anything as gross as a nurse does. My normal day-to-day is far less gross.
It's not just about that. I decided to do nurse because like I can go anywhere else with my husband, and then I can have a job.
That's true. That's
But
true, yeah.
Teacher is hard. Some country that he go, they don't need English. Oh.
That's true. So that yeah, and I didn't even think about it from the perspective of going to a different country and teaching somewhere else. Yeah, if you're a nurse, that skill is pretty much applicable anywhere. For most people, bodies work the same. In every single language, though, instruction might be different. Even like the difference in philosophies between countries could change maybe even what you pay attention to in a subject like literature or history, which is pretty intriguing. Yeah, I guess if you're looking for something more universal, go nurse. Me, I was always so afraid that somebody would die as a result of something I did wrong, and I couldn't live with that. Is one of the I never even people say, well, why don't you maybe become a doctor or something? I was like, nope, not even gonna consider it. I could not have somebody die on a table as a result of a mistake that I made, and I'm so flighty that could happen. So I did not want to. People who are responsible and calm and measured, we need those people. So what I was all trying to say about all this is that We don't have a lot of nursing majors in this classroom usually,
Yeah,
but
they don't require.
yeah, that's probably what it
Yeah,
is.
just I come here because I want to improve my English and my reading.
Literature will definitely help with that.
Yeah.
Because when you talk to people, that's one thing, but literature, I think, really lets you see the depth of human experience in a way you don't get from normal daily conversation. Normal daily conversation is usually pretty surface level. Even with like presidents, I think they've done like analysis of American presidents who you'd think would be really, really intelligent, and they would speak at like almost like a college level. But speaking at a college level in terms of reading level is hard. I think they, when they've analyzed the speech patterns of different presidents, I think the one that I can't remember the one that spoke at the highest level. I know Obama spoke at an 8th grade level, which is actually pretty high. It sounds like it's low. I think they've analyzed Trump speaks at a 3rd grade level, or 4th grade level. And I think most of the other ones we've had, I think Bush might have been 6th grade, the son, but the dad I think spoke at 7th grade. And I think almost everybody else has been 7th grade, all the way going back since we've had recorded speeches. So
That's interesting.
reading, though, when you read, writers will write at a much higher level because you have time to think about which word you want to use, what's the best word, and we just don't do that in speech. So you will see a lot more English here probably than you ever have heard, which is cool. I guess we'll get back to this. Well, this is fun. I like the sidebars. That's all this class is going to be for the most part. Isn't that crazy? We're almost always just going to have these kind of discussions. Nobody's excited about that? Okay, fine, whatever. Yeah, have fun in your other majors. Have fun building buildings and things. Elmer's helper Aminadab displayed wisdom when he said, "If she were my wife, I would never part with that birthmark." He wasn't a scientist like Elmer. He thought the birthmark was minor and wouldn't want to remove it because he liked her the way she was and how unique it made her. The birthmark was minor, and you have to look past it for who she is as a person and not just something on her face. Aminadab, unlike Elmer, understood that. At this point in the reading of an essay, I'm actually pretty worried because, remember I told you that I want you to say why you think what you think? Mm-hmm. So far, he's mostly just been giving me opinions. He did tell me that he hasn't had a dream before that's changed the way he reacts to the world, but didn't give me an example of any dream he'd had where that hadn't affected him. Additionally, here he's saying you have to look past that. Why does he think that? Why do you think you have to look past that? He hasn't addressed that yet. Most people address it as they go, but he kind of does some opinion and then addresses kind of near the end. So I was a little worried when I was reading this the first time at this point. It says, toward the end of the story, Georgiana states that life is but a sad possession to those who have attained precisely the degree of moral advancement at which I stand. Being what I find myself, methinks I am of all mortals the most fit to die. It's pretty dramatic, huh? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I read my paper wrong. Hold on. And he says, it's ridiculous that she is willing to die over someone else's perception of her birthmark. In the beginning of the story, she found it to be so essential to her character, but at the insistence of someone who finds fault in it, she is suddenly willing to risk death to remove it. There's no way that something so minor should bring such distress. I usually don't like questions in papers. I think that they beg the reader to think about it and then also kind of answer it in their head. But I think because it's a rhetorical question here and it's not asking about a specific answer, he's sort of just asking, she'd be willing to do this? It doesn't have quite the negative effect I think it usually would. For example, the example I use in class usually is if you have, for example, a paper about using the toilet, and you say, how when you sit down to pee sometimes there's no toilet paper and like that little sense of panic you feel right when it happens. Y'all probably were like, yeah, that's happened to me before. But Carlos is like, what? Because guys don't sit down to pee. So we never have a sense of panic when we sit down to pee and there's no toilet paper. Like if I go to pee, everything's easy, free and easy. But so we never experience that sense of panic in the same way that you guys would. So anytime you ask a question in a paper, there is a risk because the mind wants to try to answer it. And if the person reading it doesn't have the answer you're hoping for, it can cause the reader to lose confidence, I would say, in what you're writing and your ability to sway them.
It could take away from the smoothness of how you read, because it could cause you to get stuck on the question and then you don't even finish the paper.
Right, yeah, that can happen as well. Especially if the question is really intriguing and you want to spend time thinking about the answer. You could get totally off the topic of where the person's trying to take you. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes that's bad. And he says, there's no way something so minor should bring such distress. And this is what I like is the next thing he says. Life is way too short to stress over something so small, as I'm well aware. So he starts bringing in his personal experience. In high school, I worried what people thought about my body type or whether I was overweight. In the end, nobody really cared, but it brought me a ton of undue stress. So he's comparing the way she's caring about the perception other people had of her visually to the way he felt that way in high school as well. So he's not being superficial and saying something like, oh, this story was really intriguing because she has a birthmark and I have a birthmark, and like, what? In like that lame way of thinking like that they're similar when they're really, there's nothing really intriguing there. But he does say, she worried about her appearance, I worried about my appearance. I was able to feel for her in that way. And he does something that nobody's really required to do, and usually I prefer people don't do because it's very difficult to do it right. But he relates it to outside literature, specifically film literature, because he was a movie buff. He always mentioned movies in class. So you can do this if you want to do it in an intriguing way like this. But he says, over the course of the story, I also found so at this point he's already given me his personal experience for one of the opinions he had. So as long as he's consistent with that, maybe he does a little bit more of it, I'd be okay with it. But he gives me even more really than I asked for. Over the course of the story, I also found myself becoming increasingly irritated over the importance placed on science above humanity. I am assuming he means by Elmer, not the themes of the story. He's more concerned with getting rid of the birthmark that he can't think of anything else, just to see if he can get away with it. It reminds me of Jurassic Park. You all seen Jurassic Park? Yes. When the mathematician says, everyone was so excited thinking about whether or not they could that nobody took the time to stop and think about whether or not they should. Hawthorne really encapsulates this idea throughout the story, since Elmer has no justification for risking a human life just to see if he can achieve something. And so I thought, that is basically the same idea that Ian Malcolm mentions in the film. Oftentimes scientists worry so much about whether they can achieve something, they don't stop and think, well, should we do this? There's a great poster that a university somewhere put out, and they sell, so you can buy them if you want to, but it says like, science could teach us how to bring back dinosaurs. The humanities would show us why that's a bad idea. Because a lot of times, if you're just going with scientific advancement, you would say, "Wow, we could bring back dinosaurs." And there might be somebody over here who goes, "That's not a great idea. I'm an English major. I read literature. We should not do that." And they're like, "What?" But dinosaurs. What was that you said?
How many movies were made that showed that was a bad idea?
I know it. They're always. And here's one problem I have is that you ever seen like stuff with AI. Mm-hmm. AI is always bad in movies, isn't it? I mean, there's never one that's just like AI could be a.
Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6 is one where it's actually pretty decent. Kids movie. Additionally, there's one where it's decent, like I think Star Trek has Data, and Data was never really that bad, but he's never truly like human either. And then there was iRobot. There was the decent robot, even though they try to include this idea that there were evil robots too.
Star Wars has good robots.
Star Wars has some good robots. Rarely do you see a story, though, where AI is the huge focus. There's been some AI like advancement where they say that it was overall just very good and nothing went wrong. With the exception, I would say, of Big Hero 6, where that was the huge focus of that movie, and it worked out fine. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm sitting there crying like a baby at the end of the movie.
That one when the disc got taken out, and he got the bad one put in, and he was like...
Oh, yeah. So there's always like that inherent danger, and we should be mostly fearful of it. I think that's one of the reasons why, you tell people self-driving cars, great idea. It'll stop so many accidents. No more drunk driving deaths. No more teenage texting deaths.
And then watch Fast and Furious, and they take them all off a parking lot thing.
Have y'all ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
The new one that recently just came out?
What do they reprogram self-driving cars?
Yeah, well, they don't reprogram them. They hack into the system, and then they take them and back them all off a parking garage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they have a closed system, so you couldn't just hack. You would literally have to hack each one individual.
Yeah.
But here's something a lot of people don't consider, is that can happen with almost anything. I mean, all you gotta do is you cut the brake lines and make it stuck in reverse, and the same thing happens, and it's a lot easier. But people are just so scared of like computers turning evil because that's the only stories we've ever made. Nobody wants to make one where like we elect like some software system president, and suddenly our lives just get super better, and we're like, wow, I really didn't think this was gonna happen. It kind of pisses me off. And like I thought why is it requiring me to meet with somebody once a week I've never met before, and why does it tell me exactly who to meet? This pisses me off. And you meet that person, you're like, oh wow, I really liked them. I'm like, good job, AI. You never know like how nobody's ever really dealt with, hey, what if it's not horrible? And I always wondered why that's a thing. And I think it's because that we often in the humanities are suspicious of sciences and those types of advancements.
Well, it's always good to question.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's often the function of the humanities, is that it questions what a lot of people take for granted are good ideas. Its job is to kind of question those things, which is good.
Different perspectives.
Different perspectives, indeed. And then down at the bottom, he does something similar with another one. He says, this also reminds me of Gattaca. You ever seen that movie? It's a little less known. Another movie I watched all the time when I was younger, in that movie, everyone has the ability to choose what genetic features they want their children to have, and it calls into question whether or not humanity should have the right to choose what features, like eye color or birthmarks or even mental retardation, should be given to their unborn children. The movie basically decided that no matter what genes people are born with, whether or not they are supposedly inferior genes, they're equal as people in reality. Elmer might miss that point, but Hawthorne definitely intends for us to see. Interestingly, they did a study one time where they asked a bunch of parents who went to this particular doctor. They asked them, if your child's ended up having, when you get pregnant, because I think they were asking at a fertility clinic or something, they said if your child ends up with Down syndrome, are you going to keep the baby or abort? And I think it was like 15% of the people who were asked said that they would abort, and the other 85% said that they would keep it. When it actually happened, so because they were following a whole lot of families, when they actually got pregnant with a baby that had Down syndrome and they were able to test and find that out, 85% aborted. So people like to think that they're a lot better than they actually are. They were like, no, I would never do that. Not me, no. And then they were kind of like, oh, I never thought it would really happen. And then when it really happened, But the question is, I mean, should we have those abilities to do those things? Should we have the ability to choose whether or not? And I mean, prevailing wisdom these days is, yes, if there's going to be something that's very difficult to deal with for a child, people should have the choice to abort. But the question, I guess, is not should we have the ability to choose so much as it is that choice right to make? And those are interesting questions. I mean, should somebody, if they knew that she was going to have a birthmark, should they have been able to change that to where they say no birthmarks, just make her perfect? But why is she not perfect before? One of the really interesting ideas, we have plenty of time to do this. One of the really interesting, I would never let you out early. One of the interesting ideas that I discovered was there was a couple somewhere and they were blind, and they went to a doctor and asked how could they change the genetics of their child to make sure their child turned out blind. And a lot of people were really pissed off about this. They said, well, that's not fair. You're not giving the child a chance to decide for themselves, if they want. I mean, if they're going to be born with sight or without sight, that should be not something the parents can choose to make their kid disabled. But obviously, those people, one, I guess they wanted to be better parents to their child, and they think, and also they must think that there's something valuable about being deaf. They're both deaf. Wait.
Blind.
Blind. They're both blind. They thought, well, we would be I mean, we think that there's a value inherent in being a blind person, and you can experience the world in a way that nobody else gets to. So they wanted to, make that choice for their child, and people got really pissed off. But you ask that question, and you say, so do you think that blind people are equal to everybody else? And usually when you ask people, they say, I mean, would you say that they should have, equal rights and they're equal in terms of value of human life, wouldn't you? You think about it, yeah. But people get really pissed off when these people choose to make their child blind. So if you really think about it, you're like, well, that's not fair to the kid. Then you really do, at least in a subconscious way, consider the life value of a blind person to be less than that of what you consider, I guess, normal person. That what they're like, somebody who's normal then would get to experience sight, as though not having sight was in all cases a deficiency when they don't see it that way. So it's like a weird thing, and he's sort of addressing that here, like not just in terms of like the positive, but also I guess the negative, and like that kind of means that we're valuing some human traits over others. A lot of people even bring in well, no, I don't guess that's really as relevant, so I won't mention that. But I thought it was pretty intriguing. And then he just had a good line at the end. I think if I really scrutinized it, it wouldn't hold up as well. But his line at the end, he says, is, I guess I've always felt, even as a little kid, what Hawthorne felt 2 centuries ago when he was writing this, that science, as much as men might think it can, will never replace God. I don't really know that he addressed God at all during this whole thing. I think he just wanted a great line at the end. I think... so I was just like, it sounds cool. But I gave him a 98 because I thought maybe that last line and some bits, he could have been more clear about why he had the opinions in the beginning, and that last line could be a little more cohesive with the rest of the essay. But other than that, it was very, very good. He made me think of the fact that I want to stop in the essay and go on these little...
The last paragraph? It's just like one sentence.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean that last little 2-line paragraph? Yeah. I didn't mind.
Okay.
And I can find you millions of examples in that book of the same. But fiction is, yeah. I don't really need for every single paper to have. I mean, most paragraphs, yes, will include topic sentences and then some kind of sentences that will support that sentence, and then a transition sentence to the next paragraph. But not in every single case will that happen. In fact, this guy's not incredibly great with transition sentences. He just moves from the next idea to the next. But in this essay, you don't have to have one. He wanted to try at the end create some unifying principle for the whole paper. But even in this paper, I don't require you to have that. Notice he jumps around from dreams to here's what the helper said to, here's what she felt about herself, and here's what I think about these movies relating to that topic, so that it doesn't have to be a fully like unifying principle that has a thesis at the beginning that then dictates everything from the beginning to the end. It's almost like you're doing
It's kind of free writing.
In a little bit, like free writing with like a sense of direction in different areas. No, it's like those things we did when you were a kid, where you bring in like a piece of wood and glue things from the outside to it. Is it a montage? Collage. It's almost like a collage style essay. Where he's like, found this neat, this neat, this neat, this neat. Let's just put it all together. There you go. Critical evaluation, not like that. Super focused. So I'm experimenting with a few different writing styles here for fun. Mostly because I get bored reading essays if they're all the same. I know it sounds selfish, but it is. So let's talk about discussion posts. Are there any questions about the essay before I move on to the discussion posts? One of the reasons I want to talk about the census analysis essay... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Brenda, did you have one? I moved on really fast.
No, you're good.
Okay, just want to check. So, discussion posts, I may, instead of going... I mean, I'll show you, but... This is where you go to get there, discussion posts. And by the way, the quiz is already there for the syllabus. I don't think I have to change anything on that. I think it should still be exactly right. I guess if you zoom in, zoom out on the page, it always brings that blue bar up for some reason, and it's not there always otherwise. But discussion posts is the other thing you have to do. There's 2 sets of discussion posts. It's the only time that'll happen, with the exception of the very last week of class. But one, you're just going to introduce yourself. You know, I like people to you're going to be talking to each other on the discussion posts all semester about these different pieces of literature. So I kind of like for you to get comfortable with each other first and just say, hi, how you doing? This is me. This is what I'm about. You can talk about maybe some of the stuff. You don't have to mention the info sheet, but kind of things you would mention on the info sheet. Like, here's me. I'm from here. My major is this. Whatever you think is interesting to talk about yourself. I do want the original post to be 100 words like I do on other discussion posts, but the replies can be real short. They can be like a line or two. Maybe you say like, oh, I live in Commerce too. That's neat. Nice to meet you. And that can be it. What?
Enough for an observation.
Yeah, an observation of some sort of what they've said. That you can tell they actually looked at it and didn't just say, oh, nice to meet you. And like, I don't even know who I'm replying to. With the Beowulf here, like you'll only have the option each week, I think, to write about one piece of literature, and it's going to be usually pretty big. Beowulf in this case. It'll always have you create a thread first, so might as well click there. Each week, somebody's already got something saved here. I don't want those. I would like for you to always, because it's easiest for me to see it this way, put your name first. So here I'm writing Magnus Baraka. Put a dash.
This alter ego.
Huh?
Magnus Baraka.
How did I come up with it? It just took a lot of time. If I gave you the real genesis of the names, Magnus is the name of a character almost regarded as a god in Elder Scrolls lore from like Skyrim, Oblivion, those video games.
Okay.
It's a major plot point in the College of Winterhold quest line in Elder Scrolls Skyrim.
Have you ever watched the Shadowhunters?
I've not.
Oh,
It has Magnus. They call him Magnus Bane in it.
Really?
That's what it made me think of.
That's very close to what I've come up with.
Yeah.
And it's not related to that at all. That's very strange. Baraka is actually a video game character from Mortal Kombat. But I liked the sound of it because I was actually thinking not of Baraka when I wrote this. The character I was thinking of is kind of like if The Rock played Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. Which I actually have a visual representation of on my actual computer.
That's awesome.
In fact, I might just pull it up and it's only going to exist on the video, like I guess as a... Oh wait, there's no way of... I'll have to look. I'm going to add it on after there. But I've actually I asked somebody on Reddit to Photoshop for me The Rock onto the character Barrett from Final Fantasy VII, and so you can see it, and
That's pretty awesome.
it's pretty funny. I always want you to put the literature title as well,
Okay.
Beowulf, just so when we later get to smaller poems, I know which one you're talking about and don't have to figure it out through context clues. It just makes my job a little easier. You're like, why do I want your job to be easier? My job is hard. I'm a student. I don't think I need it to be that big for you to see it, Brenda. I'm going to go ahead and make this slightly smaller so I can get the word count in there. So you'll have this box. Down there at the bottom right, it always has a word count so you know how close you are. So rather than do the intro post right now, I'm probably not going to actually talk about Beowulf. I don't want to take anything you guys might say, even though I sort of halfway did that already on accident. You're like, dang it, now I can't talk about Christian stuff. You still can. Or being an intellectual. Let's see. I'm trying to think of a story we all know that's a story. Somebody once said the Bible, and I was like, no.
Just like anything?
Think of a movie you think we've all seen.
What about like Goldilocks? Everyone knows that story.
Everybody knows the fable story, but I'm trying to think of something that we're all aware of a big, long storyline. Because I feel like there's not enough for me to judge in the Goldilocks. Does everybody know the basics of Harry Potter? No basics of Harry Potter? What do you watch? Do you watch anything?
I watched The Office.
I know
The Office.
I can relate.
What about Jaws?
What now?
Does everyone know about Jaws?
I've seen
I think everybody knows the story of Jaws. Well, Oh wait, we mentioned Jurassic Park earlier.
Yeah.
Wait, do we all?
Does everybody know that Jurassic Park is a story about how they bring back dinosaurs so they can make an amusement park out of dinosaurs? Is everybody aware of this?
Yes.
Okay. I think we can do that then.
Have you seen the most recent one that came out?
Jurassic World, I have not seen the most recent one though. Because it came out this summer and I'm...
Yeah, I went to watch it. They basically, they're trying to like recreate
Don't
another
spoil
one. Oh,
No
okay.
spoilers.
I guess we're going to have a strict no spoilers rule in class. At least no spoilers for Jurassic World 2 or whatever it was called. Something Kingdom. Excuse me. So I'm going to try to write 100 words here on Jurassic Park. Let's just say, let's pretend that I was reading a book. I mean, Jurassic Park is a book. I actually don't prefer the book to the movie. I like the movie better. Doesn't often happen, but in this case it did. I really liked Jurassic Park. I think mostly because they didn't use a bunch of stupid CGI. Everything looked real, and I appreciated that. Let's see. I also appreciated how, because I'm realizing that sounds superficial, so I'm going to try to bring it back to, because on the discussion post, it's kind of like a miniature version of a synthesis analysis essay. You don't have to say why you think what you think. You just have to really express your opinions on stuff. But I want to make sure it doesn't sound like surface level. If all I say is, I'm glad the dinosaurs didn't look fake, that's not really deep, right? So maybe I should say something about what it was trying to say. I also appreciated how they were focused, I'm just going to steal from the paper here, on the idea that you shouldn't just bring back dinosaurs or anything from the past because you can. You might get eaten or something like that. Notice it doesn't have to be perfect.
You don't need another apex predator on Earth.
Let's see. I wasn't too happy with the kids in the movie, though, because I didn't like having to worry about whether or not they were going to die. I figured they wouldn't die, but I just found it wrong to constantly have children in harm's way. I'm trying to give something to disagree with for the next person. You don't have to do that, but... Huh?
So it's 100 words.
102! I got there! And so that's, as students probably would normally do, that's enough. So I hit submit, and then once I've hit submit, it will let me see the other threads. And look, oh, there's one. You're never allowed to reply to yourself. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. But I'm going to go, oh, look, here's a thread I can reply to. And it might not always be there immediately. It might be until Sunday night when some pop up. But I'll say, okay, let me read this. Let me reply. I'm going to say, I liked that as well about not bringing back dinosaurs. I've been saying that for years. What does that even mean? I didn't really have a problem with the kids, though. Without the kids, a lot of the humor and tenderness in the story would have been lost, and you wouldn't see the kids stand up for themselves, or the doctor, I'll just say, I don't remember his name. The doctor get over his fear of, or get over his dislike of children. Somebody's having a great time outside in Silver Springs. They're like, so let's see. So I'll just hit submit there. That's good enough. 62 words. I basically should get like more than an A because that's so much over. And then, oh look, somebody else is gonna reply. What is this? So we'll have this guy say, I actually don't know what you mean by I've been saying this for years. So is there a huge problem with people wanting to bring back dinosaurs? And they are actually close enough to making it happen? I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just haven't heard of this. And it got to 49, so I can't stop there. Somehow I got to 50. Did you notice that? I pushed period, space, backspace, and it stayed at 50. Can I just do that a lot? I was going to add at all. I just haven't heard of this at all, because then that gets me to 51. So that works for the replies too. I didn't put as much as I usually do with, I might on occasion throw in an LOL, not a lot. Or I might say haha. And it's okay to have those sorts of like real reactions you might have with people. This is not supposed to be a formal environment. I wrote in complete sentences, but it's because every day I tried. Maybe I didn't always, I don't know. I wish I hadn't, because I was trying to show you that you don't have to always write in complete sentences. I just don't want it to sound like texting language. That's what I want to be avoided, really. Text talk. Other than that, though, I mean, you can just sort of relate to each other like you would as though you were having a real human discussion between people. And you see it's fine to disagree with people. You don't, I mean, to the degree that you feel like disagreeing with people. I'm not requiring you to. I know that there's a social stigma there for some people sometimes. Like, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. So, any questions about that? Does it seem clear enough? If you have questions, you can email me. Otherwise, you have a great day. Have a great day, Brenda.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And I'm not wishing Carlos a great day because he's not there anymore, right?
He's not.
Okay, good. I want to make sure that I wasn't just not wishing Carlos a good day for no reason.
Okay.
I'll probably move this back to the way it's supposed to be.